Going back to growing up in the 1960s, were there a lot of black families during that?
In our community, I'm saying we had 3 blocks of families that were all children of about our age, and I remember going to school, and we would just go up and down the street, picking up each other, waiting for each other, and then we just go and we walk down the street in this big blob as we would walk together, going to school. Then we do whatever we had to do in school, and then we'd meet up and walk together coming back home. And then on the weekends we used to have house parties because we were involved in school activities, but there wasn't a lot of sports at that time for us to be involved in. So we had a lot of, but they had like sock hops, and we all got together as a group and went to the sock hops, or we went to the next door from this building. It used to be the National Guard Armory, and they used to have school dances there. And we would get together as a one group and walk to the armory and things like that. We would go to the movie theaters, which used to be across the street. So we had a lot of activities that we did as a group of African American kids that we just hung out together.
Oh, did you encounter any segregation and discrimination?
Yes, that's always been around. It's always been part of us. As the part of town that we were allowed to live in was also poor white people lived there. In fact, we lived next door to in the 2nd Avenue North. There was 3 white people that still own property there, and so my parents lived next door to Mrs. Hanson, and she was like a thorn in our side the whole time that we were growing up.
Yeah.
So she would call us names, and my parents would be back and forth fighting and fighting for us, and she'd call us names, and we'd go tell our parents, and our parents would come out, and they would. So that was going on, and then across the street there was white people, and those kids would call us names. So we had lots of fights among the kids. When we went to school, it was during the 60s, and that was during the civil rights movement had really started getting going, and so we would watch Martin Luther King and the riots on TV, and so there was a lot of racial tension. But the African American, I think my class, in our graduating class, we had like 15 African Americans. We started kindergarten together, and we graduated from high school together. There was no school dropout.
With the 15?
No, everyone that was, our parents, we just all knew that we had to graduate from high school. So we all started the school together, and we all graduated together, in spite of discrimination in the 60s. Dropping out of school was not an option for us. So.
And how did you feel when you first heard discriminating words towards you?
Like it's going on today, the first time we heard of any discrimination was when we entered the school system. Until then, like I said, we had this lady that lived next door to us, so we were kind of exposed to it from her. But our parents were like a shield for us, and so when you're coming from a loving home and you have support from your family, you belong. So when we started feeling that we didn't belong is when we entered the school system. It was the first times we started encountering that people really don't like us because of our color.
So were there any whites that you interacted with, in school?
Oh, yeah. But as I said, once we weren't involved in a lot of activities in school, at least I wasn't, because there wasn't sports for girls. And there was no way that we were going to belong to the swim team. I think there was only the pollywogs, I think. And at that time, there was no permanents like they have now. We straightened our hair every week, and we had to go swimming at school, and when we get out of this pool, our hair would be like this. And so it would start off long, and then we come back, so all of our white classmates wanted to know, what happened to your hair? Because it wasn't anywhere to keep it permanently straight, so we were kind of embarrassed about that, and so there's no way we were going to be on a swim team, and that was the only, I think, sporting activity that was that for girls at that time that we could join up with. There wasn't any track or volleyball or softball or anything like that.
Oh, so did the teachers in the school, did they treat y'all equal, or did they like?
No, they didn't, but we didn't have to interact with them. If our parents were very involved in our education. If we had and at the time, this is what I think is different today than when we were coming up. When we were coming up, if we had a trouble with the teachers, as children and juveniles, we did not try to interact with that teacher, that adult. We told our parents. Our parents went to the school and took care of it. So we were taught to respect adults. And it didn't matter what the adult did, we had a parent that we would go, and then our parent as an adult would deal with that. So we would what we would experience if we thought it was unfair, we would go and tell our parents. And then my mother would go, she went to the school for everything. so she was involved with PTA, and she was an advocate for us.
So is there any Black history in Clinton that we should know?
Well, I think that this is something I was going to try to look up, but I didn't. But my mom and dad, they started a little, I think it was called the M&L Cafe. And it was for my mom and dad's first name. My mother's name was Letha, and my dad's name was Maud, so it was the M&L Cafe. And they owned some property in Clinton, and they had one little house that they set aside as a little cafe for the African American kids to hang out. And they had a jukebox in there, and they would go south and get records or order records from Nashville for African American records because we couldn't find any up here. And so it was open after school and on the weekends. And that's where all the teenagers hung out at. And then it got to be so popular that we had boys coming up from the Quad Cities, and we would have dances there. It was just a real nice place, hamburgers and pop and stuff like that. It was just a place to hang out that's missing with the African American youth today. You don't have your own place that you can hang out at. So our parents provided that, and that was really, really unique. And that was opened up in 1957. And it closed, I think it was all the way up to like 1980. And then we had one reunion that everyone came back to town and had a thank you night for my parents, because as we were older, we realized that was really something that was very, very important in our lives. That little cafe and that little place helped us to, we would dance and have parties, and it was just a place to hang out that I think is missing with the youth today. That our parents provided for us. And I didn't like it because we always had to clean up after everyone. Because we had to do, after everybody left, and we'd have to go and sweep and clean and empty bottles and clean up around it and sweep around the building. And if anyone needed French fries or hamburgers, we'd have to be the ones that helped cook it. So to us, it wasn't a place. We had to work there. But as we look back now, we think, wow, that was a lot of happy hours were spent there with the teenagers in our community. Yeah.
So did you have other siblings growing up with you?
I'm the oldest of 10.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So I'm really bossy. And I like to get my way, and I think I know everything. But our family we lived in a small home, and my grandparents lived with us also, so we always would eat in shifts. And I was the oldest, so I'd have to get off school and help cook supper. And my grandmother canned everything, so we always had plenty of food that she prepared. But it was, and then after we would finish eating, and then we would clean up the kitchen, and then our kitchen became a study hall. So we all had to go around the table, and homework came out, and the little ones were kept out of the kitchen while we got homework and done. So as I look back now, it was very organized, and our parents, that was our connection between the school and home, because we had homework and our parents knew we had to do it, and so they just, our kitchen table became a study hall.
Okay, well, it was nice talking to you.
Well, thank you very much. It was nice talking with you.